I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. So lovely to speak to you both.
Hi.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having us.
Maybe just to kick off, you could give us a brief intro into this initiative, the 16 Day, 16 Films project.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Charlotte. I'm the writer and director of Eyes Down, and we just recently won the Audience Award for the 2020 16 Days, 16 Films Festival. The festival selects 16 films every year, which champion voices in the fight against violence against women. And they come from all over, so from the UK, Ireland, Mexico, the US, Italy, and France. So yeah, we've been, our films have been showed over the past, I think, couple of weeks, and then we had an award ceremony Wednesday.
And what did it mean to you for your film to be included and included in the 16 Days of Films? Because some pretty impressive individuals on the jury, and then also obviously to be selected by the audience. I guess that has like an even greater feeling of affirmation that you've made a fantastic film, that the audience have given its support.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we first heard that we'd been selected, we were all a bit sort of in shock, especially when, as you see the judges that were and the jurors that were involved in selecting. And then we learned that, that we'd been selected out of, I think it was around 350 films. And just to be in the company of these other 15 films, which as we watched them, I just felt luckier and luckier for the fact that we were chosen with them. So it sort of felt like we'd won already, just to be part of the festival. And the festival were so supportive, and they gave us lots of publicity for the films. And then, yeah, as you say, to win the Audience Award, it was just, I don't think it really sunk in for a while, because it was, it just felt like for our film to have reached that many people, and for people to use that and to select that was so meaningful for us, because it meant, that our film was touching people in the right way, which was great.
And
sorry,
I
go on.
Briefly, so I felt accepted, and I can't tell you how that feels. It feels absolutely wonderful, and it's hard to explain. Unless you're like me, you wouldn't really quite guess it, but I felt accepted. I'd been put on that list, so that was lovely.
And coming to the film itself, maybe you can talk us through, the genesis of this short film, where the idea came from, this first trip on a Glasgow bus, and how you came to be working together.
Yeah, so the film actually started as a short story, which I wrote a long time ago. I was still at university, and I was in London at the time on the tube, and there was no particular incident, but I just remember this story just coming to me, and I had to sort of furiously write it down. And then I just sort of put it in a drawer for a while, and after that I made a short film, and I was looking for an idea to kind of make a second one. And my partner said, you should really look at that short story that you wrote. It would adapt very well into a short. And from then, the more I sort of looked at it, I started to realize that actually, wow, this could actually be a great short, which actually has a real strong message that could be a way for me to really vocalize my trans allyship, and to feel like I could do something to help contribute to positive representation, and to give opportunities give an opportunity to Sophie, or to someone like Sophie, to tell this story. And from there, we met through the Beaumont Society, which is a fantastic society, which Sophie could tell you a bit more about. And it was really important, as Sophie and I started to talk, for me, that the film and the story was authentic, and that it meant something, and it wasn't just coming from my point of view. And so we sort of developed it together. Sophie was very open and generous with her experiences, and as she said, this is me, this is what I've been through, and so that really helped, because it became her story and our story that we could tell together.
Yeah, and when it was Charlotte's approach, the Beaumont Society, it was put on this sort of message board thing, and I saw it and I thought, well, it leaps off the screen. It just said, do this, that's you. And I'd made a decision a few years ago that I would embrace any opportunity I got to express how it feels to be trans, and I'm really glad I did, you know. So, yeah.
And what do you think it is about the film that, you know, helps people really kind of connect with it, or, you know, helps it resonate? I guess the fact that, you know, there is this feeling of authenticity, but, you know, in just this small snapshot, we're able to get such a lot of feeling about, you know, the experience of your character on this bus. And it kind of feels like maybe you could even see it as a metaphor for, you know, kind of going through a bit of a journey, or going through an arc of coming out and being out in the world, and starting off self-conscious and then becoming more confident towards the end. So is that how you kind of saw the film, and why do you think people can it resonates with people so much?
I think people sort of really feel they're on the bus with you, don't they? You know, we worked very hard on expressing the emotions that I was going through, and I think it communicates. I think, you know, it really was saying walk a mile in my shoes, and I think people can just see it. You know, they can feel. You got some extraordinary close-ups, which I was very uncomfortable about at the time, because Simon went in so close and he picks up every wrinkle and line on my face. But it does convey an awful lot, I have to say. And I was the whole time, because I'm not a trained actor or anything, so I was just thinking, tell the truth, show the truth, and it seemed to work. But I think, yeah, I think people just they're really able to empathise with that. When it doesn't take an awful lot of imagination to feel you're in that position.
And for you, Charlotte, you know, what did you want to convey in just those few short minutes? You know, what did you want to capture?
Yeah, I think you know, I wanted, as Sophie said, I wanted the people to empathise with the character of Mary, and I think, you know, we've all been in a situation where we felt, you know, maybe warranted or not, but we've all been in situations where we feel self-conscious and we feel like everyone's looking at us. And I think buses in particular are one of these places where that can be really amplified. And so I knew that there wasn't going to be too much of a jump for audiences to really put themselves in Sophie's shoes, even if they have never experienced, you know, the life that Sophie has. So yeah, and I think that claustrophobia was something I really wanted to bring across. The feeling of sort of being in a fish tank, really, with, you know, the windows and there's no escape. But then also the kind of the message at the end, where I wanted the audience to realize and to see, especially if they're coming from a place where they are trying to empathize with Sophie, about realizing how, you know, how much positivity can affect someone, and how it can be such a, even something so small can be such a huge moment in someone else's life that you don't realize, and it costs nothing to be nice. So
do you think there's like something particular about it being set in Glasgow as well? Because I remember, you know, the difference between where I grew up in Reading, getting on the bus, and versus, you know, getting on the tube. There is actually one positive thing I think about London is it can feel very anonymous, whereas in like a smaller city or town, maybe, you know, people interact a bit more, which can be better, but it can also be worse because maybe you feel more exposed. I don't know.
yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I think as well, I guess there's less people and there's less mixing of cultures, I guess, compared to London, which is an incredible melting pot of people. So I do think that does have a sort of a great impact. And you know, the fact that you know, you look at everyone who's on that bus and they all, you know, they all kind of look the same, and it's all, you know, it's all very uniform. So it really helps to make the character of Mary stand out that much more, and makes her really noticeable.
Yeah, she looked like she'd come from her own front door. You see her get on at the bus stop at the beginning. It's a rural setting. That's obviously where she lives. So that, and I have to say, I used to hide in plain view in London, and I would always comfort myself that people had seen everything. They're not going to look at me, and they didn't for the most part, actually. So it's quite nice, really.
Mm-hmm. And what do you hope for the impact of a film like this to be? You know, what can be the power of film and, you know, more broadly sort of arts and culture to perhaps, you know, enable people to have better empathy with other people? You know, I think we've seen in the media a lot that, you know, if people just see headlines and statistics, and, you know, it's easy for things to feel quite like toxic or polarized, or if you go on Twitter, whereas maybe a film like this can kind of allow people to actually see from the point of view of someone different from themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's what film is made for, really. I think that it's how we process our world, and it's how we connect emotionally with other people. It teaches us lessons. It shows us how to be, you know, good people. And I think that it's so important for films like ours and films within the 16 Days Initiative to be seen and to be shown, you know, as to audiences as far as they can, because you don't know who it's going to affect and who's going to take something away from it. You know, there's been people that I've showed our film to who've come to me and said, like, it's really affected them in a way that they didn't know it would, and that they thought, you know, they kind of thought, oh, I just kind of get on with my life and I don't really think about other people. And then they watch this film and then they say, God, it's really made me think about what other people are experiencing, and being a bit more aware of that. So yeah, I think film is, for me personally, film is the best way to sort of explore those feelings and to explore our world.
And perhaps some of those other people on the bus, you know, perhaps viewers might be able to relate to them more, and they might think, well, I have actually gossiped about someone who looked different, and maybe they heard me, and maybe that hurt them. They've got feelings, you know, and so maybe you'll think, oh, I won't do that again, you know. So that wouldn't be such a bad thing.
And do you think now more than ever, actually, you know, films like this, initiatives like this are needed? I mean, I'm just thinking more broadly. I know, like, during the pandemic, during lockdown, sort of violence against women has increased, but also it feels like the debate about trans rights and the environment, and there's been, you know, sort of lots of Twitter wars, if you like, about different journalists and things, you know, with different views, J.K. Rowling, you know, all that kind of kicked off. So do you feel like now is a moment more than ever that we sort of need a bit of, you know, kind of positive messaging put out on these sorts of topics?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's so easy in our time and place that we are at the moment to polarize and to be us and them, and I think that's the world that we're facing at the moment. And I think it's so vitally important for us as a, you know, to move forward as a society, to try and connect more and more. And I think that especially trans representation in the media can be so demonized, and just inherently quite negative without maybe even realizing that it is. That I think it's so important to see more and more positive representation, and to see more of, you know, people just being themselves, and that not being the focus, and to move past that and to let people live as they are, and to not feel like we need to comment on it or make a show out of it. I think, you know, to see Sophie in a role, hopefully in the future, where, you know, that being trans isn't the storyline, and it's, you know, she's a human, and she's a person, and she's got thoughts and feelings and emotions, you know, which she can convey. So I think that is so incredibly important. And I think as much as we are taking steps forward, I think there's so much work to be done. And I think that hopefully a film like ours will help to sort of galvanize people to just do something small in their life to help towards that fight.
There's also something very ordinary and everyday about being on a bus as well, isn't there? So it's almost bland for a lot of people. And here I am, just getting on the bus, going to work, doing whatever I'm doing, going shopping, and I've got just as much right to be there as anyone else. And I'm just minding my own business. We're all just decent human beings, really, aren't we? Underneath it all. So let me have my seat too.
And Sophie, do you feel particularly that right now is quite a challenging time, you know, for trans people, and people perhaps who do want to get into film, and in terms of representation on the screen? Do you think now is a tough moment, or have you seen progress?
Broadly, there's progress, but it's sort of like 2 steps forward and 1 step back, isn't it? As people progress, there are others who will kick against it. So it opens up a new line of attack almost, you know. The media didn't go mad about people like me 30 years ago. That's because people like me were keeping our heads down for the most part. So the more we feel able to come out, the more there'll be people who kick against us. So it sort of seems to go both ways, you know. And you hear more people who are trans being attacked, but to an extent that's because there are more people who feel able to go out. So it's very mixed. It's very mixed. There are a lot of really nice things happening. There are a lot of trans allies, a lot of lovely people like Charlotte, who are brave and strong enough to stand up and say, no, we don't behave like that. We don't treat people like that. People like Eddie Redmayne, wonderful trans ally, making a brilliant portrayal of a trans woman a few years ago with the Danish girl. Things like that are very positive. But it's fairly mixed though, isn't it? Because as I say, there are people who kick in the other direction. So I think it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back is how I see it.
And can you both quickly tell us what you might be doing next? Charlotte, do you know what you might be doing for your next film? And Sophie, will you be working on any other films, or what will you be involved in next?
Yeah, I have a short film which is going into very early pre-production, which we're hoping to film in summer next year. It's called Cara, and then I'm also working on a documentary which we're developing, and we're hoping to film that next year also.
Amazing. Sophie?
Yeah. Well, I've just joined the Mandy Network, which is an acting a platform for actors to advertise their wares, and so I'm living in hope. I've already getting emails sent to me saying we think this job might suit you, and it's sort of in Wales for 1 day or something. But so I'd love to carry on acting. I'm also writing a book which is a whimsical transgender comedy, and you don't get so many of those to the pound. And it's about an aristocratic trans woman who's rather pompous and rather privileged, but underneath it all rather lovely too. And I'm very fond of my little creation. So I've sent it to some agents, and one of them replied saying it's not there yet, but make some changes and we'll look at it again. So maybe, but I'll keep trying.
Yeah, very exciting. Well, can't wait to see both of your next projects. And congratulations on your audience award for this wonderful short film.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for your
much.
time,
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.